So it appears that Ubisoft is in cleanup mode. They're starting to, in a sense, mend some aspects of the brand image, whatever, is left at the moment right now. Because to be very honest, ladies and gentlemen, this is the one company that's taken a really severe beating. And at the end of the day, I think, they seem to still have some investor confidence because of what all they hold. But investor confidence is one thing. There's also, the lack of confidence from other factions of investors as well, which at the end of the day, is probably going to, in a sense, tilt one way or the other for the company. In the middle of all of this is Tom Clancy's The Division 3 in production. So is this game going to make it out of production? I guess it's it's very interesting to see. And at the end of the day, right now, I think they probably are in a very precarious situation. When you think about it, when it's all said and done, they will still need to go back to their own original IPs where they're not in a position where they're going to be splitting profits, splitting sales, splitting numbers with other companies. So a few things with Massive itself. Massive has decided to go back and clean up Star Wars Outlaws. There's a lot in terms of like the game's performance. They were talking about going in to do some patches and make sure that the game was in order. And then other aspects of the conversation as well would be their other game, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, having some challenges on PlayStation and the PSSR new upscaler that, was implemented. And when they tried to implement it with their game, didn't necessarily land well, but they still went ahead and deployed it anyways. Now, granted, I would tell you, from the PC perspective, as somebody who plays on games on PC, PlayStation is still new to this, high-end hardware thing that it's been doing lately. So there's still a lot that needs to be done. There's still a lot that needs to be worked out. And I think they can capitalize when technology is ready for them. But for now, it's just not, in my opinion anyways, feasible for a lot of folk to go ahead and do stuff like that. The final piece of the puzzle is, if you even think about it, those two games that Ubisoft Massive invested in, I keep asking myself and wondering, how did they leave or how did they forget a lot of the data that was available to tell them what games would more than likely have made them more money had they put their foot down and dug into that aspect of the industry? Because when you look at, say, in industry leaders in data analytics and being able to go ahead and, correlate what's going on, you can see that even Mapping Satella from Circana, every time he puts up any data set, you realize that once in a while, Rainbow Six Siege will show up on the whole running. If you look here on the Xbox side, the top 15 games ranked by total weekly active users ending November 23rd, Rainbow Six Siege makes its way to around number 8 on the Xbox side, which is interesting because it's Ubisoft's, live service game that has been run for such a long time and has been able to continue to stay profitable for them. I remember one time I looked at the metrics and it had brought in terms of revenue, close to 3 billion euros. So when you think about it, no one is saying that, all these companies need to just start making live service games, but for Ubisoft Massive to have an IP that was established like The Division to go ahead and make these other games, it's just a little shocking at the end of the day, right? And not only were they making these games, they were making two of these games that they'd have to share profits from that are not in the highest category of games that gamers usually play, and then almost abandon the Division 2 and just basically leave it to be supported by a very small team. Okay, it's one thing if they had done that while they were making the Division 3 game much earlier, but it seemed like a last-minute restructuring or maybe some shift in the industry post 2020 after the stay-home, mandates probably juggled their memory to say, oh, crud, we're in this position. Now, here's the thing, and I got to be honest with you. I think that the Division franchise was supposed to be taken over by the Division Mobile and the Division Heartland. I think Heartland was supposed to probably try to make its way into this particular list and draw the Division players into it. However, the investments did not necessarily seemingly make sense, and I don't think the team could hit a lot of their landmarks because Red Storm had, in a sense, transformed just a tad little bit from the Red Storm that worked on the Division 1 and the Division 2. Many of you know who Terry Spire is. If you're in the Division community, you know that name. Is a kid that is all about the skull, the punk rock, and all that. I think that's, his thing. But he went to Firaxis. He went to Firaxis somewhere around, I think, of maybe 2-3 years ago, maybe a year or two before they launched the Marvel Midnight Suns game, and that's the studio that he is. Well, the last time I saw, anyways, in his professional, listings where he was working was there, and he I thought was probably one of those folk who, in the development side, could really, really, in a sense, hammer out some really good stuff when it came to Red Storm. I don't know what it was. I think maybe there's still people that that work there in the division that are still there, but I just don't feel like the Red Storm that was able to go ahead and punch out, DZ 6 through 9 from the Division 1 map and even do some really interesting work with the Division 2. I just don't think that Red Storm was being leveraged properly to try to make a game like Heartland, basically adding new mechanics and doing a lot of really interesting stuff, like the run and the slide mechanic and the melee mechanics, just stuff that the Division wasn't built for. And I think they were probably maybe running on a build of the game that was probably from old prototypes, because those mechanics were seemingly, representative of some of the oldest prototypes of the Division that had, been shown. And I'm talking 2013 in that regard. But again, these are all hypotheticals. I mean, I'm just, throwing out my hypotheses there just to say that it didn't seem like, they could push that game out without some of the heavy hitting talent that had already been there. And also, when you think about it too, expecting Red Storm to do all that heavy lifting when even Massive itself relied on Red Storm and many other studios out there, it just necessarily didn't make any sense. So I can see how the burden put on Red Storm to bring out a game like Division Heartland pretty much, pushed or weighed too much on them, that their time would probably better be spent with other sister studios working on a Division 3 game. So maybe them trying to come in here with a free-to-play game, because that's what this data is showing here, the free-to-play titles being very popular, and they were going to use the Division to pretty much do it. But now they're in a position where they're developing a paid title, which could launch them into this category if they get the job done. This is where the Division is right now, ladies and gentlemen. This is pretty much what I think their, goals are when it comes to Ubisoft, when it comes to Massive. If they can actually keep their head down long enough to basically wade through the waters and weather out these storms that are coming for their company. I mean, I don't know if you guys paid attention. The last report was talking about who was going to basically hold more control. And remember, I don't know if you guys, have been watching my videos. I've been making a lot, so you probably, are following. I did mention that I thought that, the Guillermo family was not going to easily give up control of this company, because if they do give up control, it's going to be hard to go back and leverage it, especially now. And so they want to maintain as much control as possible. And I think it's really going to change a lot when it comes to the company. I think a lot of things are going to be affected, in that regard. I mean, how else are they going to be able to maintain control with a company that has such a heavy burn rate? I'm talking close to 20,000 staff. So Ubisoft will require a very strong restructure within. And, we're going to see how that all navigates at the end of the day. But I'm keeping an eye out, and I'm sure many of you are. I probably might play some more Division pretty soon. I've been very busy with a lot of other stuff, working on my other channel as well, too, while, the Division is pretty much on a slight hiatus. I hope to get back in, but, it is what it is. We take breaks from the Division, many of us, and from time to time, it's tradition at this point, so you guys already know what it is. But let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Hopefully we can talk in another one, and peace out.